Good evening. Good evening. Pardon me for my tardiness on this evening. I had guests who come for my sickle cell live tonight, and unfortunately, one of my sickle cell clients, she's just gotten home from the hospital, and I was talking to her and just trying to, get the understanding of, just how she's feeling. And so I'll tell you this: I wasn't gonna come on, but I had to come on because there she is. She came on. Yay. I get excited, guys. Let me add her to the stream.
Hello.
Can you hear me? I'm just talking now. You can't hear me? I can hear you.
My
Well, ladies
volume,
and
something
gentlemen.
is wrong with the volume on my on the phone or whatever.
Okay. So okay. No problem.
But I have to hit the mic, right?
Yes. You hit it? Can you hear me now? You can hear me now?
Man, come on. You're not coming through my earpiece.
Okay, we'll work on it. We'll work on it. We'll work on it.
He's up in the building now. Okay, I can only read your lips of what you're saying. I can't hear you.
Okay, so I want to go on because I'm so happy she even tried to come on tonight, and she's just gotten out of the hospital. And can I tell you how important it is to have an advocate? So she's one of the young ladies, and I'll tell you the example of today. She went to the emergency room and she was just sitting there. And that's why it's so important for sickle cell information to get out. It's so important for advocacy to get out for sickle cell because it's needed. She went to the emergency room and she was sitting there. She called me because when she called me as her advocate, then I called the emergency room wherever the sickle cell person is to find out, okay, to let them know that the person's there, they're in crises and they need your help. And then so she called me. She had been sitting there, then she got in the room gratefully and they just didn't give her any medicine. So she's just sitting there. So I called and I talked nicely the first time. And I called and I spoke to the nurse that answered the phone and just gave her my name and my organization. And that's important when you have your own business. You can stand up for your organization. Your organization stands up for you. It's backed up. And when I called and I explained who I was and she was my client, and that she had not been seen no less than 1 second, she says, "Oh, someone's in there now." So that's why it's so important for sickle cell to have advocacy. And so, being that I'm an educator, so since she couldn't come on tonight, I couldn't get my screen to share with you all. I hate she couldn't come on. And I actually had two of my clients to come on so they can explain to you guys how you live with sickle cell, and it's a challenge, and it is a real disease to manage and live with. And so what I decided to do was I decided to share with you all a book that I learned when I came into the realm of sickle cell. There was a book that I learned and I studied. So this is it just asked the question, what is sickle cell disease? Well, sickle cell disease is a group of related disorders that affect red blood cells. Now, you and I, we have cells in our bodies. We have red blood cells and we have white blood cells. So sickle cell attacks the red blood cells. And we have normal blood cells in our bodies if you don't have sickle cells. So normal cells are round like this. So if you have sickle cell, those cells aren't as round. When they go through your body and you go into something that's called a crisis and you are in pain, they begin to sickle and they start to clump like this because they go into a shape. And in our blood vessels, which are this small, Dr. Sessoms explained to us last week on how our bodies function and how our cells, our cells that are whole, can flow freely through our blood vessels if we don't have sickle cell. But if you do have sickle cell and you go into a crisis, whether it's the lack of oxygen in your system, whether it's dehydration, it could be because the weather has changed and it's cold outside. And we know here right now, this is the winter season for the state of Florida. And so therefore, we are going back and forth. We have summer in the afternoon, we have winter in the morning, spring in the morning. So I know there's a lot of challenges for our sickle cell family members, loved ones, friends, neighbors that are battling this disease. So if the normal blood cells in our bodies, they're soft, they're smooth, and they're round. But those that have sickle cell disease, though, their cells become hard, sticky, and they're shaped like crescent moons. That's the example I can give you of the shape. And so when my client went in the hospital, and that's a perfect example of what happens. And a lot of times the clients don't want to go to the hospital because of the mistreatment, because of the neglect. And I won't name hospitals, I won't name doctors, but I'll just name generally, it's unfair. And so that's why if you know anyone or you're friends with someone that has sickle cell, be an advocate. It's for you can call the doctor, you can call just a checkup on them. And the more a person has someone to check up on them, the less neglect, the less mistreatment. Okay, so why should you learn about sickle cell? Why? First of all, it's a myth that it's a black disease. Yes, it was found in the continent of Africa. Yes, but there have been so many tangled of loves and relationships that have come together. Caucasians have sickle cell. People from different continents around us, countries around us have sickle cell. So it is a myth. It is not a black only disease. Okay, because sickle cell disease is a real health problem and it's a serious health problem. It affects not only the individual, but it affects couples, it affects families, it affects loved ones. Because when those persons that have sickle cell, when they go through those crises for a certain amount of time, it shortens their lifespan. A lot of times, sickle cell hit major organs. It hits the gallbladder. We know we need a gallbladder. It hits the pancreas. It hits things that help us to function in our normal bodies. And so it not only affects the individual that has the disease, but it affects those around them that love them and want to be around them a long time. So sickle cell disease can be controlled. Yes, it can. By a person dressing the weather. If it's cold outside, by dressing with a t-shirt under your clothes. I was taught that growing up. My auntie Lee taught us to wear t-shirt up under your clothes year round. Whether it's summer or it's winter or spring, it's good to wear a t-shirt because you're protecting your chest. Especially with corona going around. I tell my students, make sure you have a t-shirt on because it's important to protect your chest, because inside of our chest, we have cavities where we need to live. When I say cavities, I mean like in our lungs and in our respiratory system to help us breathe. And I know that COVID does attack the lungs. Ask me how I know, because I survived it. Thank you, Jesus. Okay, so I'm going to do this as a teacher. And I'm so glad you guys are looking tonight. If you have any questions, please feel free to put it in the comments and I will answer your questions. And I do see a comment right here. Oh, I see someone sharing. Hello, Curly. Thank you for sharing. There are so many of your loved ones that you may not even know. I learned late in life, after I got into sickle cell, that one of my first cousins on my mom's side has the trait. Her brother has the trait and her father has the trait. So it's very important that you all know if a person has a trait or not, because it affects you when you get older. It affects you because a trait and a trait equals the disease. The only way you can get sickle cell disease or anemia is through your parents. Yes, you can be born with this, because if you have your mom that has a trait, your father has a trait, those come together and they create children. It's a 1 in 4 chance those children can have the actual disease. And with the disease, it is a challenge. What's the difference between sickle cell trait and sickle cell disease? Well, people with the sickle cell trait, they will never get the disease, but they can carry the gene that will affect their children. And that is true. Genes are passed only from parents to their children. They determine everything about a child's makeup. So you say, what is a gene? Not the genes that we put on, but the gene. So the gene determines everything about a child's physical makeup, like our hair, our skin color, our height, our build, and so on. So if you see, you look in the mirror, and you see, oh gosh, I look like my mom, or I have my dad's nose, or I have my father's eyes. Even genes can go down the line genetically. You can look like a great aunt, or your son can look like his great uncle, and that's what genes do. So that has a great effect on sickle cell. The genes affect hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is the protein in red blood cells. Hemoglobin is a protein in red blood cells, and it carries oxygen from the lungs to other parts of the body. So me, I have regular hemoglobin. I don't have anything sickling in my body. I have whole cells. So then, since I have whole cells and I have my parent that has whole cell, my father has a whole cell, I will never get a trait. I will never get a disease, because the only way I can get it is from my parents. But when you have one regular gene from a parent and you have a sickle gene from a parent, that can cause a trait. So a whole cell and a sickle cell, mom and dad coming together, that can form the trait. When you have two genes for sickle hemoglobin that have the sickle disease, then that is a greater form of the disease. And I hope I didn't confuse you all in reference to that, but that's how it is. Now, I just explained that, so I don't want to get too deep into that because it's science, but I can understand. I can explain it to you. Sickle cell again is not restricted to one group. I repeat, sickle cell is not restricted to one group. People in many ethnic groups have sickle cell trait or disease, and it is most common in African Americans, but it can also affect Latinos. Example, people that are from Greece, Western Asia, India, Native Americans. Those are other examples of those families or cultures that can relate to sickle cell disease. Sickle cell disease is not contagious. I remember doing programs at places like the Boys and Girls Club, or if I did at a summer program, I've done them, around the area. And I know when children hear the word disease, they're like, oh, like you can catch it. But sickle cell disease is not something you can catch. It's not like a cold. It's not like a disease, and I would say like a sexually transmitted disease that can be passed. But a person cannot catch the disease through the air, water, or skin. The only way to get sickle cell disease is to inherit it from your parents. Sickle cell disease does not affect your intelligence either. So it does not mean that you're not smart. It does not mean that you're not bright. There are a lot of people I've talked to that have the disease that are very, very intelligent. And then also there are doctors, there are nurses, people that have great jobs, biologists that are carrying this disease. The only unfair thing is the neglect and the mistreatment and the misunderstanding of someone that has sickle cell disease. Why? With the treatment, people with sickle cell disease can live productive lives. Yes, there is a lifespan because when those cells sickle, they attack major parts of your body. And after a certain amount of time, I don't know if you know people that have had battles with sickle cell crises a lot, they start to have hip replacements or parts of their body having to be removed or replaced because it has gone through so many challenges with sickle cell, then their bodies have to take on a different change. The term sickle cell. So the term sickle cell actually refers to a group of similar hemoglobin disorders. And there are types of sickle cell diseases. There's a hemoglobin SC disease. There's a sickle beta thalassemia disease. So in sickle cell, there's not just sickle cell disease. There are different types and forms of sickle cell. Some forms of the disease of sickle cell cause fewer health problems than others. And I want to step back a little bit about the trait. So with my organization, I don't just only help those that have the disease. I also help those that have the trait, meaning the trait, you won't have crises. You may have problems in your body because your cells will not receive as much oxygen as someone that has whole cells. So you have traits. You don't have the whole disease. So there, people that are the traits need help as well. There was a young man that attended UCF, and I went to UCF, and I was able to meet the student body after that young man passed because he was playing football, and he passed out on the field from dehydration, and he died. He didn't have the disease. He only had the trait. But because of the dehydration and the level of the dehydration, he did pass away. So I would say for those that if you know you have the trait and you're wondering why I'm tired, that's because you need to stay hydrated with the trait as well. You won't go to the hospital with a crisis unless you have other health problems. The underlying condition is always the same. All forms of sickle cell disease are marked by low red blood cells and crescent-shaped blood cells. And again, the cells for normal blood cells are round shaped, and those that have sickle cell are shaped as of a crescent moon. If I can show you a picture as I do in school with my classes. So if you see this picture here, and you see the microscope there, that's how those cells will be able to be detected. So this is a picture, if you would see, this is a picture of whole cells and sickle cells. So the round cells are whole cells. And those funny looking cells that you probably have not seen before are what is called sickle cell shapes. And that's why they're called sickle cells, because of their shape that they've taken form of. Again, to reiterate, sickle cell is not contagious. It is not caught in the air. You can't cough and sneeze on someone to get it. It's only inherited through your parents. Now, the sickle cell disease can cause many health problems. And this is what I was talking about earlier about how it attacks your body. It causes infections because the curved, sticky blood cells can clog the spleen, which prevents it from helping the body to kill germs. Now, these are the main parts of our bodies that we all need. Anemia. Sickle cells have a shorter life than regular red blood cells. And so the body cannot make new red blood cells fast enough to replace the old ones. So with fewer red blood cells, the organs and the tissues do not get the oxygen that they need. And that's how it starts affecting greatly with sickle cell in the body. Organ damage. Lack of oxygen over many years can lead to tissue and organ damage in any part of the body. And that's what I was explaining when you have to get things replaced and removed. Pain. I cannot express the pain that they go through. And what the unfair part is, the lack of compassion that is within doctors and nurses, because they can't relate. I see so many generations, so many cultures can relate to cancer. But when it comes to sickle cell, because the origin of it is African American, we're looked at, and I say we because I'm an African American, the disease is looked at upon as totally different of mistreatment. And so that's my fight, to get it out there. Tell someone else whatever you want to tell in reference to education. Reach out to me. I have education to share. I have books like these that I can share and pass out so people can know that we can help our people. And I say our people because we're the ones being mistreated in this. Pain. Crescent-shaped cells can get stuck in smaller blood vessels, and this may block blood and oxygen flow to tissues, and that's resulting in the pain. That's where the pain comes from. And I'll say that again. The pain comes from the crescent-shaped cells that get stuck in the smaller blood vessels, and it blocks the blood and oxygen flow to tissues, and that results in the pain. So just imagine a person that's having a complication in their body, and I would say with being pregnant. I remember I went to a hospital, and I won't name a hospital name. And I remember I had one of my sickle cell clients with me who was expecting. And after when you go to the hospital and you're pregnant, after you reach a certain a month, you go upstairs. You don't just go through the emergency room. Well, it was time for her to go upstairs, and the nurse said out of her mouth, "That's why we don't want y'all to have babies." Really? Words like that can really, 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 really hinder a person from wanting to do a lot of things. It can hinder a person from wanting to even try to do anything else. And that's so important when it comes to sickle cell, not only sickle cell, anyone that's ill, the things that we say to them. Well, after encouraging her over and over to get her back, okay, because that made her not okay, then she went on and she did have a baby. She had a healthy baby. So let me get back to the lesson. Another problem that occurs in sickle cell disease individuals is called the hand-foot syndrome. And this is usually found in babies. And it involves pain and swelling of the hands and feet. It's caused by sickle cells that block the blood vessels of the hands and feet, and it usually occurs in babies and younger children. Leg ulcers. Poor circulation lead to sores that have difficulty healing, and these occur often around the ankles. I don't know if you've ever seen, I notice and I pay attention, I look. When someone has sickle cell, you can see it. You can see in their eyes, and that was the next one, jaundice. A lot of times people may have jaundice because they drink alcohol, but when you have sickle cell, jaundice is a symptom that it includes the yellowish tinge to the eyeballs or skin, and it's usually painless, but it indicates that there's a problem with the blood. So that's exactly what jaundice is. It's an indication that there's a problem in the blood. Other problems associated with sickle cell disease include chest pain, trouble breathing, stroke or brain attack, gallstones, vision problems, blood in the urine, pneumonia, slowed growth and delayed puberty in children, and painful erections in men. Now, out of the things that I've just read, some of those things sound like COVID. Chest pains and trouble breathing, um, pneumonia. So that's why I know now with the clients that I have with sickle cell, it's a battle. It's a real battle. It's already a battle. But then you have an extra illness in the world named COVID-19. It's an extra battle. So my organization, yes, I do take donations. It is a 501c3 deductible organization. And let me go ahead and pause and put up ways that you can give. The question is, people that have the trait, can they still have pain? I would say yes, because when you have the trait, you can get dehydrated because your cells are not getting as much oxygen as a person that has whole cells. You can have the pain of when you're tired in your body. For instance, the young man that died on the football field with UCF, he had pain, but he kept playing football. He became dehydrated within that pain. So when you're dehydrated, even me, when I get dehydrated, I feel kind of sick when I'm dehydrated. That's anybody. Normal cells, when you get to a point of dehydration, if I get dehydrated right now and I can't hydrate myself enough, I will have to go to the hospital. Even with normal cells, they will have to put an IV in me because it has happened to me in the past and get me back hydrated. So yes, you can have pain, but I would never say you will have as much pain as a person that actually has the disease. I want to share up here ways where you can give to my organization. That's okay. I can't find it right now, but that's okay because I want to get back to the information. Okay, so all newborns should be tested. And the ironic thing is, with so much testing, so much information going on, you would think, oh, it's no problem to detect someone that has sickle cell. Well, to my surprise, last year I went to an event in Orlando it was at a hotel, and it was a sickle cell event, and a testimony of a young lady who was getting ready to get married, so excited. Well, she didn't know her fiance had sickle cell. The fiance didn't even know he had sickle cell. So they were sitting around the table. And when one of the loved ones said, what are you guys going to do about children? She says, what do you mean? What are you going to do about children? She says, because he has sickle cell. And she was like, he does. One thing I know about families and individuals that know about sickle cell, they do not want to deal with it again. And when I say again, meaning they don't want to deal with it again through the life of their child. Because with them alone dealing with sickle cell, it's enough. But then when they have to go through that battle again through their children, it becomes very excessive, it becomes very trying because they have to go through that all over again, what they've gone through, or what the loved one that took care of them has gone through. Now they have to go through it with a child. So how do you stop people that have sickle cell from coming together and having children? You educate. You educate. You allow them to know the information, how serious it is if you have a trait and you marry someone that has a trait, you guys come together, have children, that's going to be a bad risk for that baby. Well, what if you can't help it? Oh, you just love them so much. Then when that risk is going to be taken, then you just love them anyway. You treat them okay, you treat them right, you treat them nice, you treat them kind, you have compassion because that was a choice they made. All newborns should be tested. Before 1988, it was mandated that newborns are tested. Now, no, you have to ask for that test. The test is simple, and it is a small blood sample that is taken. Infants who test positive are usually retested to confirm the results. I have tested individuals in the past. I've tested teams that play um, basketball and softball. I've tested those. And when those tests are taken, they're sent out to a lab, and those results are come back. And that was when we had a building for the Volusia County Sickle Cell organization. Early treatment is key. Infants who test positive may be started on medication right away to fight or prevent infections caused by sickle cell disease. And here it is. When early detection is found, the medicine that is given is already strong. So if a baby is given strong medicine, by the time that baby becomes a toddler and growing up in stages, and then by the time that that individual becomes a teenager, it's more and more medicine given. So that's the problem when our sickle cell individuals and families are looked at as drug seekers. They're not drug seekers. They're put on these drugs at a young age to help them stop the pain that comes in their body. So then when they become adults, they really have to have strong pain medicine. And it's not fair to be looked at as you are a drug seeker when you've been given these drugs from the doctor themselves as babies. The entire family can benefit from the screening. The sickle cell screening for newborns provides an opportunity to identify other family members who may carry the sickle cell trait but not know it. And that is true. I have a friend who went to college with me. She's in her 40s. She went through tests. She went through pain through her life. She's in her 40s. She's from the state of Georgia. They just detected that after all these tests, after all these years, that she now has sickle cell. She's had sickle cell. I don't know why it was not detected, what machine did not, or what did not detect it. But when a person has sickle cell, they're born with it. So that's a perfect example. If one person in the family has it, okay, well, where did it come from? That's an illness you can find out. It came from somewhere. Unless the person has been adopted, that's a different story. If a person has been adopted and has no record of their biological parents, that's different. That is very much so different. But again, once the person knows that they have that illness, meaning they have the disease, no, not the disease because they know that by birth, but they know they have the trait, which can be found sometimes later on, then they need to make sure in talking and courting, in which I tell teenagers when I do programs, it's not a conversation piece. You when you're talking on the phone or you're meeting someone, oh hey baby, you got the trait. No, but in knowing someone and in conversing with someone, it is a conversation that needs to be had because it's dangerous when a person that has a trait gets with someone that has a trait. They have not discussed it. They do come together. A baby is born, and then that disease is there. I'm excited because in the weeks to come, you will meet those individuals that are dealing with this disease. You will meet individuals that are coping with this disease, some that are being coping successfully. You will meet those that go to the hospital more and more. You will also meet parents that have the challenge of taking care of children that have to deal with this disease. I was blessed to be a teacher of a young man, and now he's a teenager. He's doing so well. He doesn't really have crisis at all. His mom is doing a really, really good job. I'm very proud of her. But he has sickle cell disease, and I was his teacher in the second grade. And when I moved to another school, his mom brought him with me. So I was his teacher in the third grade. And I'm excited when he gets to come on. I won't say his name. I'll let him introduce himself. Let his mom introduce them to you all. But I'm very excited. What can a person do if they're going through sickle cell mentally? Because yes, sickle cell is a mental situation. Because you go through so much with your body, it has a strain on your mindset. I was asked the question today, is sickle cell considered as PTSD? I would say yes. PTSD is a post-traumatic syndrome disorder, something that you go through that is causes stress and trauma. Yes, I would say yes. And I believe that's the reason why, and I'm going to research it, that sickle cell is now deemed as a disability. So if you didn't know and you don't know and you have sickle cell disease, yes, you can get disability for it. Please apply. Yes, you can get disability for it. It is a real disease. You're living with this. You can't get rid of it. Also, there's counseling. I want to encourage everybody who's looking, listening, and can share this. Counseling is okay. Counseling is needed. There's nothing wrong with getting counseling. I was going to say I don't care, but it doesn't matter your culture background, it doesn't matter where you're from. Counseling is needed for different situations, different reasons. Counseling is needed. And there's mental health counseling. There's counseling for every disorder. Google is your friend. Chrome, use it. Find a place near you that has and offers counseling. There are churches that offer free counseling. So I would say, please get counseling. Sickle cell disease can be controlled. And that's it right there. So sickle cell disease is controlled by medicines. They're controlled by pain relievers and antibiotics, along with drugs to prevent dehydration, which is fluid loss. And some people with sickle cell disease must take vitamin supplements. So with all of these things given and put into the body, there's no way a person can seek it because they have to have it. they need it for the sickling to get back to normal. They have to have it. So I say, join this battle with me. Join the battle of advocating on behalf of those that have sickle cell. Join the battle with me of encouraging those that have something to want to know about sickle cell. There's much education about it. It is real disease. No, it cannot be passed from person to person. It's not in the air. It cannot be coughed and you catch it. It is a real disease. People are living with this disease. Yes, the one cure that I do know, and I have reached out to the young lady from Putnam County, is the stem cell treatment. But that person that has a disease have to go under the treatment with the person that has the same mother and father. And that person has to have whole cells, not the trait, the whole cells. And a lot of times that's not as easy to find. But yes, having sickle cell is able to be coped with. Does sickle cell cause health problems? It does cause health problems because when those cells attack your body, it causes other things to happen in your body and go wrong. So I say again, join this fight with me to advocate on behalf of your friends, your neighbors, your loved ones. I say join this fight with me to educate others, tell others about sickle cell, because the more we get this out, the more it'll be talked about, the more it's understood. Then the doctors and the nurses have no choice but to respect it. It's not respected because people don't know a lot about it. A lot of people are not prone to what actually it is. My plan and my goal is to talk about sickle cell every day, to inform everywhere, get information out where I can. And I ask you, join with me in this fight for sickle cell advocacy. Thank you so much for coming on tonight. I appreciate you. I hope I did not talk too fast and that you understood the information that I did share tonight. And I do apologize, but I will have my clients back on. Keep them in prayer, please. All sickle cell clients all over the world, please lift them up in prayer. This is not an easy battle, and it is a everyday battle for them. I have one more in the private chat. How do you tell someone that you have sickle cell? Some young people don't want to tell their partner because the way he or she might react. So I would say, get to know that person first. I wouldn't say let that be the starter of the conversation. I wouldn't say as soon as you meet someone, I wouldn't say as soon as you meet someone that be the beginning of the conversation, because before that person becomes your partner, you have to know them. So I would say first, get to know them, ask them questions, in random general conversation. You ever heard of sickle cell? See what they know. Give them information and see how they treat you when they find out. Because I can tell you now, if I say, you ever heard of sickle cell disease? Oh, you got it? Okay, so therefore you already know. That right there shows you how that person feels. You can still befriend them, give them information, but I don't know if I would choose to settle down with someone unless they want to know about it and want to care about you. Because as we get older, we learn what real care and consideration is. Maybe not so younger, but as we get older, it could be in your 40s, it could be your late 40s. You learn how and what it means to be treated correctly. So that's one thing I would say to help you to tell your soon to be partner, because if that's your partner already, then he should or she should already know that sickle cell is in your bloodline. But before that person becomes your partner, be their friend a while, and then talk to them about sickle cell and see how they react and respond to you. If you all don't have any more questions or any more comments, I was trying to bring up to you all. I'm still learning. I'm grateful to learn. Shout out to my pastor, Pastor Anthony Graham, who's helping me and teaching me on this awesome technology. I don't know. So there are ways that you can give in my organization. Can't find it. So that's okay. Just know. Here's another question. So next week, definitely, we will have April, which is one of my clients. April, she will be on with me, and Rhodesha, she will be on with me next week. I am so happy to know a lot of people that have sickle cell. You will get to meet people not only from the areas that I serve, and I know last week I said I was stumbling. So the areas that I do serve are East and West Volusia, Flagler, St. John's, Putnam, Clay, and Baker. Those are the newer counties. And next week you will get more information. I just met a young lady in Connecticut where my sister lives who has sickle cell, and the treatment is the same across the board. The mistreatment from the doctors and the nurses. So that's why we want to get sickle cell out here so people can know and respect it. I hope you all enjoyed this information. Curleen, thank you for coming on. I'm glad you enjoyed the information. You are so welcome. I have more information to share, and I appreciate you all for your time. Have a great Monday evening, and I'll see you the same time next Monday. Have a good night.